She dialed her friend's number, but it wasn't her on the line. On the other side, the millionaire boss listened in silence. Every wish turned into a flame in a dangerous quiet. And that call sealed destinies that didn't ask for permission. Subscribe now, so you don't miss this breathtaking story. Marina Olsen locked her office door, her hands still trembling. It was almost 10 at night, and the 12th floor corridor of the commercial building on 5th Avenue was empty, silent as a graveyard. Fluorescent lights flickered faintly above her head, creating shadows that seemed to dance on the cold, marble-clad walls. She leaned her back against the frosted glass door, where the name of the law firm she had worked at for 5 years was emblazoned in gold letters, and closed her eyes for an instant, trying to control her breath that came out in short, desperate gasps. The day had been exhausting, not just because of the workload, the cases piling up on her desk, the tense hearings, or the demanding clients. Marina was used to that. A law graduate from the University of London, she had always been considered one of the brightest lawyers of her generation. At 28, she had built a solid reputation in corporate law, advising major corporations on mergers, acquisitions, and complex litigation. Her name was whispered with respect in the corridors of the London courts. But today, the weight didn't come from the cases. It came from something much deeper, something that corroded her soul from within like an invisible acid. Robert had shown up again. Marina squeezed her eyes shut tighter, as if the gesture could erase his image from her mind. Robert Miller, her ex-boyfriend, the man she had loved with an almost self-destructive intensity for 3 years. The man who cheated on her with a co-worker, who emptied her savings with promises of a millionaire business that never existed, who emotionally manipulated her until she found herself completely lost, no longer knowing who she was. She had managed to end the relationship 8 months ago. It had been 8 months of intense therapy, sleepless nights, rebuilding brick by brick the self-esteem he had demolished. 8 months trying to recognize herself in the mirror, trying to remember what it was like to be Marina before Robert, before all that destruction. And today, he simply appeared at the office door. Marina opened her eyes and began to walk towards the elevators, her high heels echoing in the empty corridor. She remembered every word he had said, every calculated gesture, that smile that once made her melt and now made her nauseous. Robert was different, better dressed, his hair meticulously cut, an expensive watch on his wrist. He said he had changed, that he was in therapy, that he had reflected on all his mistakes. He talked about how much he missed her, how no other woman compared to Marina. He asked for a second chance, just a conversation, a coffee, an opportunity to show he was a new man. Marina had said no. She repeated the no several times, firmly, her voice trembling but resolute. But Robert didn't accept negatives. He never did. He insisted, argued, used all the manipulation tactics she knew so well. When he finally left the office, he made it clear he wouldn't give up, that he would return, that she still loved him, even if she wouldn't admit it. And the worst part was that tiny doubt he planted in her heart, that minuscule voice whispering if maybe, just maybe, he really had changed, if she wasn't being too harsh, if she wasn't throwing away a second chance at happiness. The elevator arrived with a soft metallic sound. Marina stepped in and pressed the ground floor button. Her reflection in the elevator mirror startled her. Deep, dark circles under her eyes, smudged makeup, her brown hair, which she always kept impeccable, now disheveled and haphazardly tied back. She looked like a ghostly version of herself. When the doors opened on the ground floor, Marina quickly crossed the lobby, greeting the night security guard with a brief nod. The London night welcomed her with its characteristic noise, intense traffic even at that hour, the lights of the buildings illuminating the sky that never completely darkened. London never slept, and that night Marina felt she wouldn't either. She walked to her car, a modest white sedan parked in the building's garage. She got in, locked the doors immediately, and sat there for a few minutes just breathing. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her fingers turned white. That's when her phone rang. Marina picked up the device from her bag and saw the name on the screen. Julia, her best friend since college, the only person in the world she still completely trusted. Julia was always there, through good times and bad, with words of comfort, with tight hugs, with the brutal honesty that only a true friend can offer. Marina needed that now. She needed to hear Julia's voice saying that everything would be all right, that Robert was a manipulator, and she was right to refuse him, that she was strong and would overcome this once again. She unlocked her phone, her hands still trembling, and went to her contacts. Julia was there, right in the middle of the list. Marina tapped the name, without thinking twice. The call started ringing, once, twice, 3 times. Marina leaned her head against the seat back, closing her eyes again. She needed that conversation so badly. She needed so badly not to be alone at that moment. Someone answered. But before the person on the other end could say anything, Marina broke down. Words poured out of her mouth in an uncontrolled torrent, tears streaming down her face, her voice choked, punctuated by sobs. She talked about Robert, how he had appeared, how she felt weak and pathetic for still having that tiny doubt, that ridiculous thought, that maybe she was losing a chance. She talked about the betrayal, the stolen money, the empty promises, the pain that still burned inside her like an open wound. And then, Marina talked about something she had never said aloud to anyone. She talked about how tired she was, tired of being strong all the time, of carrying that mask of a successful lawyer, of an independent and powerful woman. She talked about how she felt trapped in a life she never truly chose. The law career wasn't her dream. It was her father's dream, the retired judge who always imagined his daughter following in his footsteps. Marina went to university to please him, passed the bar exam to make him proud, built a brilliant career to honor him. But she wasn't happy. She never was. She recounted the days when she woke up and had to convince herself to get out of bed, how she looked at the cases on her desk and felt an immense emptiness, how her life was a sequence of obligations and expectations that never stopped growing. She talked about nights when she lay awake imagining how different things would be if she had followed other paths, if she had studied literature as she always wanted, if she had been a writer, if she had traveled the world aimlessly. Marina spoke of the burning desire to simply disappear for a few days, not to run away permanently, not to abandon everything, but just to have a break, to live without being Marina Olsen, the lawyer, to live without being the judge's daughter, to live without carrying the weight of the past, of expectations, of masks. She just wanted to be herself, whatever that meant. And then Marina said something that surprised her. She said she didn't want wealth, she didn't want status, she didn't want power. She just wanted someone who truly saw her. Not her resume, not her appearance, not her reputation. She wanted someone who looked into her soul and recognized the real person living there, hidden behind so many layers of protection. When she finished speaking, Marina was exhausted. Tears wet her face, her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. She waited for Julia's response, waited for the words of comfort she so desperately needed to hear. But what came was silence, a long, heavy silence that made Marina's heart race. And then, a deep, grave, masculine voice answered, "Marina, Julia isn't here, it's me." The world stopped. Marina's eyes widened. She looked at her phone screen in disbelief. It wasn't Julia. The name on the screen wasn't Julia. It was Gabriel Ashton, her boss, the owner of the Ashton Group, one of the most powerful business conglomerates in the UK, operating in dozens of sectors, from technology to construction, from retail to investments. The man who signed her paychecks, the billionaire known across the country for his imposing presence in economy pages, for his strategic acquisitions, for his coldness in business. Gabriel Ashton had answered the call that was meant for Julia, and she had poured out everything, absolutely everything. Marina felt her blood run cold. Her whole body was paralyzed, unable to move, unable to think. The phone slipped from her hand and fell onto her lap. She stared at the illuminated screen as if it were a nightmare, as if at any moment she would wake up and realize none of it was real. But it was real. She had called her boss by mistake. She had poured out her personal life, her weaknesses, her fears, her regrets. She had said she wasn't happy in her career. She had said she wanted to disappear. She had said she felt trapped. To Gabriel Ashton. Panic washed over Marina like a giant wave. She picked up her phone again, her hands trembling so much she could barely hold the device. She was going to hang up. She was going to hang up immediately, block the number, pretend it never happened. She would invent some excuse tomorrow at the office, say she was drunk, that it was a prank, anything. But before she could press the red button, his voice sounded, again on the phone. "Please don't hang up." Marina froze. "I need you to continue. Continue." Her voice came out weak, almost inaudible. "Yes. Keep talking." There was a pause. "Please." Marina didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to say. Her brain was in collapse, trying to process what was happening, trying to find a way out of this absurd and humiliating situation. But there was something in his voice, something different from the cold, calculating tone she was used to hearing in meetings, in video conferences, in the company corridors. There was something almost human, vulnerable. Marina took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "Mr. Ashton, I apologize. I called the wrong person. I didn't intend for you to hear any of this. I was just... You said you feel trapped." His voice interrupted gently. Marina was silent. "You said you built a life you never truly chose, that you follow expectations that aren't yours, that you just want to be seen for who you really are, not for what you represent." Gabriel paused, and Marina could hear the sound of his breathing on the other end of the line. "I understand that. I understand more than you imagine." Marina blinked, confused. She didn't know how to respond. "I feel that way too." The confession came out low, almost a whisper. "Trapped. Living a life I didn't choose. Carrying a name that is heavier than an iron chain." Marina held her breath. Was she really hearing this? Gabriel Ashton, the man who seemed to have everything, who commanded an empire with an iron fist, was saying he felt trapped. "My mother was an artist," he continued, his voice taking on a melancholic tone. "She painted. She created magnificent paintings, full of color and life. She was talented, recognized, happy. But when my grandfather died and my father took control of the Ashton Group, she was forced to abandon everything. The family needed her to be the exemplary wife, the businesswoman, the brand representative. She put her brushes in a box in the attic and never picked them up again." Gabriel took a deep breath. "And now I see the same story repeating with me. I never wanted to be a businessman. I never wanted to command this empire. But it's what's expected of me. It's the legacy, the tradition, the weight of the Ashton name." Marina was completely still, absorbing every word. "At this very moment before you called, I was looking at my wedding papers." Gabriel gave a bitter laugh. "An arranged marriage, a union of business interests, of alliances between powerful families. I'm going to marry a woman I barely know, whom I don't love, who doesn't love me, and I'm going to sign those papers because it's what's expected of me, because it's convenient, because it strengthens the empire." Marina felt a wave of unexpected compassion. She had always seen Gabriel Ashton as a distant, almost mythical figure, the billionaire boss, the ruthless businessman, the man who made decisions that affected thousands of lives without batting an eye. But now, on the other end of the line, she was hearing a human being who suffered, who felt as lost as she did. "So you understand." The words came out of Marina's mouth before she could think. "You understand what it's like to live a life that isn't yours." "I understand." The answer was immediate, and that's why I need you to keep talking. Because for the first time in years I heard someone express exactly what I feel, without filters, without masks, without concern for appearances. It was real, authentic, and I didn't know what that was like anymore. Marina was silent for a long moment. Her heart was still racing, but now for a different reason. It was no longer panic. It was something she couldn't name. "I don't know what else to say," she admitted softly. "Say anything. Say everything. I'll just listen." And then, surprisingly, Marina continued to speak. She talked about her controlled childhood, about her father's suffocating expectations, about how she always tried to be the perfect daughter, but never felt good enough. She talked about the loneliness she felt even surrounded by people, about how she built walls around herself, to protect herself, but ended up truly isolating herself. Gabriel listened in silence, only making small sounds of understanding now and then. And when Marina finished a thought, he shared something of his own. He spoke about the constant pressure to keep the family name intact, about the business decisions that kept him awake at night, about the coldness he needed to show to be respected in the business world, even when inside he wanted to scream. The conversation that should have lasted seconds stretched for an hour, then 2, then 3. They spoke like two strangers who paradoxically knew each other deeply. They shared wounds they had never shown anyone, dreams they had kept locked away, fears that haunted them in the silent early hours. Marina was completely absorbed in that unexpected connection. She forgot she was talking to her boss. She forgot about hierarchies, social conventions, the barriers that separated them. At that moment, she was just talking to Gabriel. One human being talking to another human being. That's when he asked a question that would change everything. "Marina, you said you wanted to disappear for a few days, to live without a past, without expectations, without masks, to just be you." "Yes," she confirmed, her voice tired but calm. "What if that were possible?" Marina frowned. "What do you mean?" "What if I invited you to disappear with me?" There was a pause laden with meaning. "For a week. 7 days. Away from London, away from everything. No questions about the past, no obligations, no real names if you prefer. Just two people living in the present. An experiment, a break from the real world." Marina was speechless. This was crazy, completely insane. She couldn't just drop everything and travel with her boss, a man she barely truly knew, to an unknown place. It would be irresponsible. It would be reckless. It would be... "I accept." The words came out of her mouth before she could process them. Silence on the other side. "You accept?" Gabriel sounded genuinely surprised. "Yes." Marina didn't know where this courage, this impulsiveness was coming from. "For the first time in my life, I'm going to do something completely crazy. Something I want, not what others expect of me." She felt tears return to her eyes. But now they were different. They weren't of pain. They were of something that resembled hope. "Yes, Gabriel. I accept." Gabriel was silent for a few seconds, and Marina could imagine a smile forming on his face. "Then let's disappear." His voice was laden with an emotion she had never heard before. "I'll arrange everything. We'll meet at Heathrow Airport tomorrow at 7 in the morning. International terminal. Don't tell anyone. Just show up." "What if I change my mind?" Marina asked, but there was no real conviction in the question. "Then you don't show up." Simple as that. "But I hope you do show up, Marina. I really do hope so." They were silent for another moment, just breathing together through the phone line. "Until tomorrow, Gabriel," Marina whispered. "Until tomorrow." Marina hung up her phone and sat in the car, staring into the emptiness in front of her. Her heart beat at a strange rhythm, accelerated but not uncomfortable. Something was bubbling inside her, something she hadn't felt in so long that she almost didn't recognize it. It was excitement, expectation, the intoxicating feeling of being about to do something that would change everything. Marina started the car and drove out of the garage through the illuminated streets of London. When she arrived at her apartment in Notting Hill, a small studio she rented alone, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her phone beside the bed, wondering if all of it had really happened or if it was a product of her exhausted imagination. But it had happened, and tomorrow, at 7 in the morning, she would be at Heathrow Airport, ready to disappear. Marina didn't know where they were going, didn't know what would happen, didn't know if she was making the right decision. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't thinking about the consequences. She was just saying yes. And that, in some strange and terrifying way, seemed to be exactly what she needed. Across town, in a luxurious penthouse in Mayfair, Gabriel Ashton sat on his balcony, looking at the city lights below. The papers for the arranged marriage were scattered on the table behind him, forgotten. He smiled at the London night. Tomorrow he was going to disappear, and for the first time in years, Gabriel Ashton felt free. Her phone alarm rang at 5 in the morning, but Marina was already awake. In fact, she hadn't slept a wink. She had spent the entire night staring at the bedroom ceiling, her heart oscillating between excitement and absolute terror at what she was about to do. When she finally got out of bed, her legs were trembling. She took a long shower, letting the warm water cascade over her tense shoulders, trying to calm the thoughts spiraling in her head. What was she doing? She was going to travel with her boss, a man she barely knew outside the corporate environment, to an unknown destination for 7 days, without telling anyone, without planning anything. It was madness, but at the same time, it was the most liberating thing she had ever done. Marina chose simple clothes, jeans, a basic white top, comfortable sneakers. She packed a few essential items in a small backpack, clothes for a week, toiletries, documents. She left her work laptop on the apartment table. She wouldn't need it. She didn't want to think about work, cases, or anything that connected her to the life she was temporarily leaving behind. Before leaving, Marina picked up her phone and opened her messaging app. She needed to tell someone she couldn't just disappear without a trace. Her fingers hovered over Julia's name for a few seconds. Julia, her best friend, the person who had always been by her side. But then Marina hesitated. Something bothered her, a strange feeling she couldn't name. Were she and Julia as close as ever? In recent months, since the breakup with Robert, Marina felt there was a subtle distance between them. Nothing obvious, nothing she could concretely point to, just an intuition. Conversations that seemed more superficial, cancelled meetings more frequently, a certain discomfort in the air when Robert's name was mentioned. Marina shook her head, pushing away the negative thoughts. She was being paranoid. Julia had been her friend for over 10 years. She had been there through the worst times. She was her sister at heart. She typed a simple message. Julia, I'm going away for a few days. I need some time for myself. Don't worry, everything's fine. I'll call you when I get back. Love you. She sent the message and turned off her phone. She didn't want to be reached. She didn't want explanations, questions, worries. She just wanted to go. When she left the apartment, the London sky was still dark, only the first purple hues on the horizon announcing dawn. The streets were relatively empty, except for the first workers heading to their routines. Marina called a ride-sharing app and, within 40 minutes, was at Heathrow Airport. The international terminal was a hive of activity, even at that early hour. Families with huge suitcases, executives with leather briefcases, young backpackers with an air of adventure. Marina stood near the entrance, looking around, not knowing exactly where to find Gabriel. Miss Olsen. Marina turned quickly. A man in a dark suit, with an upright posture and professional expression, stood beside her. She didn't recognize him. Mr. Ashton is waiting for you. If you would accompany me. Marina nodded, still processing that this was actually happening. She followed the man through the terminal, past the conventional check-in counters, until they reached a restricted area. An exclusive elevator took them to an upper floor where the executive aviation terminal was located. Of course, Gabriel Ashton didn't fly on commercial flights. The man in the suit led her to a private waiting room, elegantly decorated with leather sofas, a coffee table with international magazines, and a huge window overlooking the runway where private jets were parked. Gabriel stood near the window, his back to the entrance, his hands in his trousers pockets. He wore casual clothes, so different from the impeccable suit Marina was used to seeing. Dark jeans, a lightly unbuttoned grey shirt, a brown leather jacket, slightly disheveled black hair. He looked like a different person. When he heard the door open, Gabriel turned. Their eyes met, and Marina felt something strange in her chest. In the daylight, seeing him in person, after that intimate conversation the night before, everything seemed different, more real, more risky. You came, Gabriel said, and there was genuine relief in his voice. I said I would, Marina replied, trying to sound more confident than she actually felt. Gabriel walked towards her, stopping a few steps away. He was tall, almost 6'3", and Marina had to look up slightly to meet his gaze. There was something different in his brown eyes. It wasn't the calculating coldness she saw in meetings. It was something softer, vulnerable. "Thank you," he said simply, "for trusting me." Marina didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. "The jet is ready." Gabriel pointed to the window. "If you're ready, we can board. Where are we going?" Marina finally asked the question that had been tormenting her since the night before. A small smile appeared at the corner of Gabriel's mouth. "To a place where no one will recognize us. A place where we can just be two normal people, without last names, without reputations." He paused. "Do you trust me?" Marina took a deep breath and, surprising herself, replied, "I trust you." The flight lasted about 3 hours. During takeoff and the first moments in the air, they were silent, just watching London grow smaller and smaller below through the jet windows. The city that trapped them, that dictated their lives, that knew their every step. They were leaving everything behind, if only temporarily. When they reached cruising altitude and the seatbelt sign was turned off, Gabriel got up and went to the jet's small galley, returning with 2 cups of coffee. "You take black coffee, right?" he asked, extending a cup to Marina. She took it, surprised. "How do you know?" Gabriel shrugged. "In meetings. Whenever coffee is available, you take a cup. Always black, no sugar, no milk." Marina took a sip, impressed that he had noticed such a small detail. "You pay attention to things, more than people imagine." Gabriel sat in the armchair opposite her, his knees almost touching hers in the limited space of the jet. He took a sip of his own coffee and then looked directly at her. "We need to establish some rules." "Rules?" Marina raised an eyebrow. "Yes. Rules for this week." Gabriel leaned slightly forward. "First rule, no talking about work, neither yours nor mine. For 7 days there are no cases, meetings, contracts, or business, just life." Marina nodded. "Makes sense." "Second rule, no social media. No photos, posts, check-ins. The world cannot know where we are or what we are doing." "Agreed." "Third rule, and this is the most important one." Gabriel looked at her intensely. "No investigating each other's past. No searching for information online. No asking questions about our history before today. We live only in the present. Who we were yesterday doesn't matter. Only who we are now, together, this week, matters." Marina was silent for a moment, absorbing the meaning of that rule. It was radical, but it was also exactly what she wanted. A break from her own identity, a chance to be someone new, even if for a short time. "I agree with all the rules," she said finally. Gabriel extended his hand. "Then we have a deal." Marina shook his hand. It was large, warm, firm. "We have a deal." They spent the rest of the flight talking about simple things, favorite movies, songs that touched them, places they would like to visit. Nothing deep, nothing that revealed too much about their real lives. Just 2 strangers getting to know each other. When the jet began its descent, Marina looked out the window and saw the sea. A sea of impossible blue stretching to the horizon, and then an island, white buildings against green mountains, clear sandy beaches, colorful boats anchored in crystal-clear bays. "Where are we?" Marina asked, mesmerized by the view. "St. Lucia." Gabriel replied, a genuine smile lighting up his face. An isolated paradise in the middle of the Atlantic. Few people, untouched nature, pure beauty. The perfect place to disappear. The plane landed on a small airport runway. When they disembarked, the humid heat and the smell of sea salt immediately enveloped Marina. It was completely different from London. The air was clean, laden with salt and vegetation. The sky was a vibrant blue without a single cloud. The sound of waves could be heard even from there. A simple car, an open jeep, awaited them. There was no suited driver, no entourage, just the 2 of them. "You drive?" Gabriel asked, tossing the keys to Marina. She caught the keys in the air, surprised. "I drive." "Then let's go. Show me the island." They put their backpacks in the back seat, and Marina took the wheel. There were no maps, no programmed GPS. Gabriel simply pointed. "That way." Let's go wherever the road takes us. And that's exactly what they did. They drove along narrow dirt roads, passing through small villages where locals greeted them with friendly waves. They stopped at deserted beaches where waves crashed powerfully against dark volcanic rocks. They walked barefoot in the sand, leaving footprints that the sea soon erased. They didn't talk much during the first few hours. They just existed, breathed, felt the sun on their skin, the wind on their faces, the sand between their toes. As the sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky, with shades of orange and pink, they arrived at a small rustic guest house hidden among palm trees. It wasn't a luxury resort. It was simple, authentic, welcoming. Gabriel checked in using a false name. 2 separate rooms, close to each other. The guest house owner, a woman in her 60s with a warm smile and a distinctive regional accent, welcomed them as if they were old friends. "You make a beautiful couple," she commented as she led them down the wooden corridors to their rooms. "First time here in St. Lucia?" "First time," Gabriel confirmed, exchanging a knowing glance with Marina. Then you'll fall in love with the island." The woman laughed. "Everyone falls in love. St. Lucia has this magic, you know. It makes people reconnect with what's truly important." Marina and Gabriel exchanged a look. There was something prophetic in those words. After leaving their backpacks in their rooms and taking quick showers, they met on the guest house veranda. Night had completely fallen, and the sky was filled with stars. So many stars Marina had never seen in her life. In London, light pollution hid most of them, but there it was as if the entire universe was exposed. "It's incredible," Marina whispered, her head tilted back, her eyes lost in the cosmos above them. Gabriel was beside her, also looking up. "You know what's most incredible?" he said softly. "These stars are there every night. But we live so caught up in our routines, so blinded by everything we've built around us, that we forget to look up." Marina turned her face to look at him. In the soft candlelight that the guest house owner had lit on the veranda, Gabriel looked different, younger, lighter, as if he had left an enormous weight in London. "You look different," she commented. Gabriel smiled. "You too. You no longer have that tense expression you carry at the office. You look more relaxed, more yourself." "I don't even know who myself is anymore," Marina admitted. "I spent so long being what others expected that I lost contact with who I really am. Then that's our mission this week." Gabriel turned completely to her. "To discover who we really are when no one is looking, when we don't need to keep up the masks. What if we don't like what we discover? Then at least we'll know the truth, and the truth, however hard it may be, is always better than illusion." They had dinner at the guest house. The owner had prepared a local seafood stew with fresh fish, caught that same day, accompanied by white rice. It was simple food, but made with love, and it had a flavor that no sophisticated London restaurant could match. During dinner, they talked about things they had never shared before. Gabriel spoke about his childhood, growing up in a huge but empty mansion, always surrounded by servants, but rarely seeing his parents, who were too busy managing the business empire. He talked about the loneliness he felt even surrounded by luxury, about how he learned early on that affection and attention were rare commodities in his family. Marina, in turn, spoke about her father's constant pressure, the judge who saw his daughter as an extension of his own unfulfilled ambitions. She talked about how she never felt good enough, no matter how many achievements she accumulated, how many awards she won, how many compliments she received. There was always the feeling that it wasn't enough. When they finished dinner, it was already past midnight. They walked together to the door of their rooms, which were side by side in the corridor. "Good night, Marina," Gabriel said, standing in front of his own room door. "Good night, Gabriel." They looked at each other for a long moment. There was something in the air, a tension that wasn't uncomfortable, but palpable, a connection forming too quickly, too intensely. Marina entered her room and closed the door, leaning against it for a few seconds. Her heart was racing. She lay down on the bed, a simple bed with white sheets smelling of lavender, and for the first time in months she fell asleep without difficulty. She had no nightmares. She didn't wake up in the middle of the night tormented by thoughts of Robert or the office cases. She slept deeply, lulled by the distant sound of the waves. The days that followed were like a dream. Marina and Gabriel woke up early, had breakfast together on the guest house veranda, and went out to explore the island. They walked on trails that led to hidden beaches, swam in natural pools where sea turtles swam around them fearlessly, watched the sunset from different viewpoints. There was no rush, no agenda, no obligations. They talked about everything and nothing, about books that touched them, about philosophical theories, about the meaning of happiness. They laughed at silly jokes, shared comfortable silences, discovered small things about each other. Marina discovered that Gabriel had a dry, intelligent sense of humor that he hid under the mask of corporate seriousness. He discovered that she had an artistic sensibility that she never had a chance to develop, that she wrote secret poems in an old notebook she had kept since adolescence. On the third day, something changed. They were sitting on a beach late in the afternoon, their feet buried in the still warm sand, watching the horizon where the sky and sea merged into infinite shades of blue. "May I ask a question?" Marina broke the silence. "Always. Why did you really agree to do this, to come here with me? Such a crazy, risky experiment. Why?" Gabriel was silent for a while, carefully considering his answer. "Because when I heard you talking on the phone that night," Marina turned to look at him. "It was the first time someone had spoken exactly what I felt, but never had the courage to say aloud. And I realized that if I didn't do something radical, something completely outside of what's expected of me, I would spend the rest of my life regretting it. I would marry a woman I don't love. I would run a company that doesn't make me happy. I would die without ever having truly lived." Marina felt a tightening in her chest. "And now? Do you regret it?" Gabriel looked at her directly, his brown eyes deep and honest. Not for a second. They stared at each other, and Marina felt something shift within her, a barrier falling, a protection being removed. She was opening up, allowing someone to truly enter, without filters, without defenses. "Gabriel, I need to tell you something." The words came out before she could suppress them. "What?" "I broke the rule." Gabriel frowned. "Which rule?" "The one about not investigating the past." Marina averted her gaze, feeling guilty. "Last night, when we got back to the guest house, I picked up my phone and searched your name. I read about you, about your family, about the company, about the arranged marriage. I broke the trust we established." There was a long silence. Marina was afraid to look at Gabriel, afraid to see disappointment or anger in his eyes. But when she finally gathered the courage to face him, what she saw surprised her. He was smiling, a small, almost sad, but understanding smile. "I broke it too," he confessed. "I searched about you on the second day. I read about your career, about the cases you won, about your father." He reached out and lightly touched her arm. "I think we both wanted to know if the person we were getting to know here was real, or just a temporary fantasy." "And what did you conclude?" Marina asked softly. "That you are more impressive than I imagined, stronger, more talented, more incredible, and that makes me admire you even more." Marina felt tears threaten to surface. No one had ever spoken to her like that, with such sincerity, such vulnerability. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Now that we know who the other truly is?" Gabriel held her hand, intertwining their fingers. "We continue. Because the enchantment wasn't in ignorance, Marina. It was in the truth, in the real connection. And that hasn't changed just because we now have more information. If anything, it just made everything more real." Marina squeezed his hand back, and they sat there as the sun slowly descended on the horizon, painting the sky with impossible colors. It was the third day, and Marina knew she was falling in love. For the first time since Robert, she was allowing someone in. But this time, it was different. There was no manipulation, no games, no lies. It was just truth. And truth, Marina was discovering, was much scarier than any lie, but it was also infinitely more valuable. On the morning of the fourth day, Marina woke up with a different feeling. There was a lightness in her chest she hadn't felt in years. She opened her eyes and lay for a few minutes just observing the wooden ceiling of the room, listening to the birds singing outside, feeling the gentle breeze that entered through the open window, bringing the smell of the sea. She was happy. It was such a strange, unexpected sensation that for a moment Marina almost didn't recognize it. Genuine happiness, without reservations, without that constant shadow of anxiety that always accompanied her in London. It was as if someone had lifted an enormous weight from her shoulders, and she could finally breathe completely. She got out of bed, put on a light cotton dress she had bought in a village shop the day before, and left the room. Gabriel was already on the veranda, 2 cups of coffee on the rustic wooden table, looking at the sea that sparkled under the morning sun. "Good morning," he said when he saw her, an automatic smile lighting up his face. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I've slept in years." Marina sat beside him and took one of the cups. "And you?" "Me too." Gabriel took a sip of coffee, his eyes still fixed on the horizon. "You?" "No, I was thinking. It's been 4 days and I haven't thought about the company once, not once. It's as if that life belonged to someone else. I know the feeling." Marina agreed. "I haven't thought about any cases, any clients, any hearings. It's liberating and terrifying at the same time." "Why terrifying?" "Because it makes me question if I really want to go back." Marina admitted something she had been avoiding thinking about. "If it's worth going back to that life that doesn't make me happy, just because it's what's expected of me." Gabriel was silent for a moment, absorbing her words. "What if we didn't go back?" Marina looked at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" "What if we simply didn't go back? To London, to our old lives? What if we stayed here, or went somewhere else and started over?" Marina gave a humorless laugh. "Are you serious?" "Completely." Gabriel turned to face her. "Marina, I have enough money for us to live comfortably for the rest of our lives without ever working again. We could go anywhere in the world, do whatever we wanted, be whoever we wanted." It was a tempting fantasy. Marina could visualize it, a simple life on some remote beach, or in a charming European city, or traveling the world aimlessly, without pressures, without expectations, without masks, just her and Gabriel, exploring life together. But then reality hit hard. "It would be running away," Marina said softly. "It wouldn't be starting over. It would just be running from our problems without solving them." Gabriel sighed, knowing she was right. "I know, but the idea is tempting, isn't it?" "Very." Marina held the coffee cup with both hands, feeling the comforting warmth. "But I think we need to go back. We need to face our real lives. Because if we simply run away without solving anything, we'll carry that baggage forever." "You're wise, you know," Gabriel commented, a tone of admiration in his voice. "I'm not wise. I just learned some lessons the hard way." They finished their coffee in comfortable silence and then went out for another day of exploration. Today, Gabriel had planned something different. They went to a small art studio he had discovered during a walk alone the day before. It was managed by a local artist, a woman in her 50s named Constance, who created impressive paintings inspired by the island's landscapes. When they entered the studio, Marina was amazed. The walls were covered with canvases of different sizes, all showing the sea in its various facets, calm and serene, violent and turbulent, mysterious and deep. There was an emotional intensity in each brushstroke that spoke directly to the soul. "They're beautiful," Marina whispered, walking slowly among the works. Constance, who was in the back of the studio cleaning brushes, turned and smiled. "Thank you, my dear. Each of these paintings is a piece of my soul left on the canvas. How long have you been painting?" Gabriel asked. "As long as I can remember." Constance approached them, her eyes shining with passion. "But I only managed to make it my life 10 years ago, when I finally had the courage to quit the secure job that suffocated me and dedicate myself completely to art." "What made you make that decision?" Marina was genuinely curious, the desire not to reach the end of my life with regrets. Constance looked at her own works with affection. "We spend so much time doing what others expect, following paths we didn't choose, that we forget to truly live. One day I woke up and realized I was living someone else's life, and I decided to change that." Marina felt the words resonate deeply within her. It was exactly what she was feeling. exactly the conflict that tormented her. It wasn't easy, Constance continued. I had to face family criticism, lose some friendships, start from scratch. But it was worth every second of difficulty, because now when I wake up in the morning, I'm living my life, not someone else's. Gabriel and Marina exchanged a meaningful look. After spending almost 2 hours in the studio, talking with Constance about art, life, and courage, they walked through the village. Marina was quiet, absorbed in thought. What are you thinking about? Gabriel asked. Constance. Marina sighed, how she had the courage to change her life at 40, to start over. And I don't have the courage to do that at 28. Marina. Gabriel stopped walking and lightly held her arm, making her stop too. You have courage. You're here, aren't you? You left everything for a week to do something completely outside your comfort zone. That's courage. But it's temporary. This bubble will burst in 3 days and we'll have to go back to reality. Then let's make these 3 days count. Gabriel smiled. Let's live as if every moment is our last. Let's feel everything intensely, and when we go back, we'll take this with us. This feeling of being alive. Marina nodded, trying to absorb his positive energy. Okay, let's do this. That night, after dinner at the guest house, Marina went back to her room and did something she hadn't done in months. She opened her backpack and took out a small red-covered notebook that she always carried with her but rarely used. It was a diary she had kept since adolescence, where she wrote thoughts, poems, observations about life. She sat on the bed with the notebook on her lap and began to write. The words flowed easily, naturally, as if they had been trapped for a long time and finally found an outlet. Marina wrote about the last 4 days, about every moment, every conversation, every emotion. She wrote about the wrong call that changed everything, about the impulsive decision to travel with a stranger, about the discovery that this stranger wasn't so strange after all. She wrote about Gabriel, about how he was different from what she imagined, about the vulnerability he hid under the armor of a successful businessman, about how she felt when she was near him, safe, understood, free. She wrote about herself, about who she was before Robert, about who she became during that toxic relationship, about who she was starting to be again there on that island lost in the middle of the ocean. She wrote about fear, the fear of returning to London and losing that sense of freedom, the fear of having to choose between the life she built and the life she truly wanted, the fear of falling in love again and being destroyed again. But she also wrote about hope, the hope that it was possible to start over, that it wasn't too late, that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be happy. When she finally stopped writing, it was past midnight. Her hands ached, but her heart was lighter. She closed the red notebook and put it back in her backpack, determined to write every day until the end of the trip. On the 5th day, they woke up early and went for a hike that Constance had recommended. It was a long and challenging walk to the highest point of the island, but the view promised to be worth it. They took water, fruit, and started the ascent right after breakfast. During the hike, they talked about everything. Gabriel told more about his mother, how she had been a talented artist who gave up everything for the sake of the family. He spoke about the day he found her paintings stored in the attic, covered in dust, forgotten. How that broke his heart and made him question for the first time if he really wanted to follow in his father's footsteps. Marina, in turn, spoke about her own relationship with her father. How she always wanted his approval but never felt worthy. How she chose law not because she loved it, but because it was what he expected. How even today, at 28, she made decisions based on what he would think, and not on what she truly wanted. When they reached the top of the trail, they were sweaty and tired, but the view took both their breaths away. They could see the entire island stretched out below them, white sandy beaches, sea in shades of blue and green, dark rock formations, the village with its colorful houses, and beyond only the ocean, stretching infinitely in all directions. It's the end of the world, Marina whispered, amazed. Or the beginning, Gabriel replied. They sat on a flat rock side by side, just enjoying the view and the silence. There was no one else there. They were completely alone at the top of the world. Marina, Gabriel broke the silence after a while. Can I ask you a personal question? Of course. That ex-boyfriend you mentioned on the night of the call. Robert. Does he still affect you? Marina was silent for a long moment. It was a difficult question touching on still sensitive wounds. He does, she admitted finally, not in the way he used to. I don't feel anything for him anymore. I have no romantic feelings left. But he haunts me in other ways. He makes me question my judgment, my ability to trust people, my worth. He planted seeds of doubt that are hard to uproot. He cheated on you? Yes, with a co-worker. I found out in the worst possible way when I saw messages on his phone. He denied it for weeks, made me think I was crazy, paranoid, until I had irrefutable proof. And even then he tried to convince me that I was to blame, that I didn't give him enough attention, that I was too cold, too focused on work. Gabriel clenched his fists, clearly irritated by the story. And after the betrayal, he asked, then came the final blow. Marina felt the familiar burning of tears but held them back. He convinced me to invest my savings in a business that was supposedly going to make us rich. He said it was a unique opportunity, that we needed to act fast. I, like an idiot, trusted him. I transferred all the money I had saved for years, and he disappeared. Disappeared? Disappeared. He took the money and vanished for 3 months. He blocked my contacts, didn't respond to emails, nothing. Then I found out the business never existed. It was all a lie. He used my money to pay debts he had to other people. When he finally reappeared, he came with excuses, with promises to return it, with emotional blackmail. And you forgave him? No. Not this time. Marina shook her head. I ended the relationship, managed to recover a small part of the money through a lawsuit, and tried to move on. But the scars remained, and now he's reappeared again, saying he's changed, that he's in therapy, that he wants a second chance. And I hate to admit it, but he can still get to me. Not because I want to go back, but because he knows exactly which buttons to push to make me doubt myself. Gabriel was quiet for a while, processing everything she had told him. Then he turned to her and said something Marina would never forget. Marina, you are not an idiot. You are human. You loved someone and you trusted that someone. That's not weakness, it's courage. The fact that you ended the relationship, that you didn't go back even with all the manipulation, shows your strength. And the fact that he can still affect you doesn't mean you're weak. It means you have a heart, that you feel, that you are real. Don't let the actions of a miserable man make you question your worth, because you are worth far more than he ever deserved. The tears Marina had been holding back finally streamed down. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were of relief. Relief at being seen, understood, validated. Gabriel extended his arms and pulled her into a hug. Marina let herself be enveloped, resting her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeats mixed with the sound of the wind. They stayed like that for a time that felt both eternal and too short. When they finally separated, the sun was already setting in the sky. They began the hike back in silence, but it was a different kind of silence. There was a new intimacy between them, a connection that went beyond words. That night after dinner, they sat on the beach in front of the guest house. The moon was full, reflecting on the water in a silver path. The sound of the waves was hypnotic, constant, eternal. Marina, Gabriel said after a long silence. Thank you for sharing your story with me. Thank you for listening, Marina replied, and for not judging me. I would never judge you. Gabriel looked at her with an intensity that made her heart race. You are one of the strongest people I know, and also one of the kindest. It's a rare combination. Marina didn't know what to say. No one had ever seen her like this, no. One had ever looked beyond the mask of the successful lawyer to see the vulnerable person underneath. Gabriel. She said his name softly. Yes, I need to tell you something. What? Marina took a deep breath, gathering courage. I'm falling in love with you, and it terrifies me, because I swore I would never again let anyone have that power over me. I swore I would protect my heart at all costs. But you, she paused, searching for the right words. You broke down all my defenses without even trying. And now I'm here completely vulnerable, afraid but also hopeful. And I don't know what to do with it. Gabriel was silent for a moment that seemed to last an eternity. Marina began to regret speaking, began to brace herself for rejection. But then he smiled, a genuine, luminous smile, full of relief. "Marina, do you think you're alone in this?" He held her hand. "I'm falling in love with you too. In fact, I think it started the night of that call. When I heard your voice breaking as you talked about pain, about unfulfilled dreams, about the desire to be truly seen. Something shifted inside me at that moment, and every day here only confirms that maybe, just maybe, the universe knew what it was doing when it made you call the wrong number." Marina felt tears return, but now they were tears of pure happiness. "So what do we do?" "We," Gabriel squeezed her hand, "we continue. We live these last 2 days intensely. And when we return to London, we find out if what we have here is real or just a holiday fantasy. What if it's just a fantasy? Then at least we will have lived something beautiful, even if it's temporary. What if it's real?" Gabriel looked into her eyes. "If it's real, then we fight for it, with everything we have." Marina nodded, her heart filled with an emotion she hadn't felt in so long that she had almost forgotten what it was like. Hope. Real hope, not the illusion Robert sold. Hope built on truth, vulnerability, genuine connection. They sat on the beach late into the night, talking about the possible future they could build together. They didn't make grand promises or detailed plans. They just shared dreams, possibilities, hopes. When they finally returned to the guest house, Gabriel walked Marina to her room door. They stood there, close, their eyes fixed on each other. "Good night, Marina," Gabriel whispered. "Good night, Gabriel." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to back away if she wanted to. But Marina didn't back away. Instead, she closed her eyes and let him kiss her. It was a soft, gentle kiss, laden with promise. There was no rush, no desperation. Just pure connection. Two souls recognizing each other. When they separated, both were breathless and smiling. Marina entered her room, closed the door and leaned against it, her heart pounding in her chest. She touched her own lips, still feeling the warmth of the kiss. For the first time in a long time, Marina wasn't afraid of the future, because for the first time in a long time, there was something worth fighting for. The 6th day dawned cloudy. It was the first time since they arrived in St. Lucia that the sky wasn't completely blue. Grey clouds covered the horizon, and the wind blew stronger, bringing a different smell from the sea, as if a storm was approaching. Marina woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. Anxiety. Reality was beginning to infiltrate, the perfect bubble they had built. Tomorrow would be the last day. The day after tomorrow they would be back in London, back to their real lives, back to all the responsibilities and problems they had left behind. She picked up the red notebook and wrote her morning reflections. The words came with more difficulty today, heavy with weight and worry. What would happen when they returned? Was Gabriel truly willing to fight for what they had? Or was all this just a tropical fantasy that would evaporate as soon as they stepped back on London soil? And her? Was she ready to face the consequences of having disappeared for a week without properly notifying anyone? The office would certainly be furious. Clients waiting for her, cases piled up, the reputation that took years to build possibly damaged. But at the same time, Marina didn't regret it, not one bit. That week had been necessary, vital. She had rediscovered herself, had discovered parts of herself that she thought had died during her relationship with Robert. When she left the room, she found Gabriel on the veranda, but he didn't have the tranquil expression of previous days. He looked worried, tense, staring at his phone screen with a furrowed brow. "Is everything okay?" Marina asked, sitting beside him. Gabriel sighed deeply before answering. "I turned on my phone this morning. I needed to check a few things before we went back." He showed her the screen. "I have 143 missed calls and over 300 unread emails." Marina felt the weight of reality fall on her shoulders. "Wow. My VP is desperate. The company is in crisis with an acquisition that was underway before I disappeared. My mother called 17 times, worried something had happened to me, and my fiancé." He paused bitterly. My ex-fiancée, since I technically cancelled the wedding by disappearing, is threatening to sue for breach of contract. Contract? Marina raised an eyebrow. The marriage was essentially a business contract, a merger of families and businesses. Gabriel dropped his phone on the table with more force than he intended, and I threw everything to the wind without any prior notice. Marina held his hand. Do you regret it? Gabriel looked at her, and the sincerity in his eyes reassured her. Not for a second, but I can't deny that reality hits harder when you see the concrete consequences of your choices. Marina nodded, understanding perfectly. I think I need to turn on my phone too. Face reality. She went to the room, picked up the device that had been off since they arrived, and pressed the power button. The phone took a few seconds to boot up, and then began to vibrate uncontrollably with notifications arriving all at once. 32 missed calls, 87 unread messages. Most were from office numbers. But there were several from Julia too. Marina opened her friend's messages first. The first message was from 5 days ago, right after Marina had sent the notification that she was traveling. Marina, are you okay? Where did you go? Why so suddenly? Subsequent messages escalated in concern. Please answer. I'm getting worried. You never do this. Just disappear like that without details. And then 2 messages from the day before that made Marina's blood run cold. Marina, Robert showed up here asking about you. He said you're not answering his calls and that he's worried. I told him you traveled but didn't tell me where. He was very upset. The second message was even worse. Marina, I need to tell you something. Robert and I talked a lot yesterday. He really seems different, truly in therapy, working on himself. I think you should give him a chance to explain. I know you'll be mad at me for saying this, but sometimes people deserve second chances. Marina felt nausea rising in her throat. Julia, her best friend, the person she trusted most in the world, was talking to Robert behind her back. Worse, she was defending him, suggesting Marina should give a second chance to the man who betrayed and stole from her. How could she do this to me? Marina whispered to herself, tears stinging her eyes. She continued scrolling through the messages. There were several from the office, from the senior partner, saying her absence was causing problems, that important clients were dissatisfied, that she needed to return immediately, or there would be serious consequences. Marina closed her eyes, trying to control her breathing. 7 days. Just 7 days of a break from real life, and everything was falling apart. She returned to the veranda where Gabriel was still sitting, now making calls, his voice firm and professional as he managed crises remotely. When he saw Marina, he immediately realized something was wrong. Hold on a moment, he said to the person on the other end of the line, and then covered the phone's microphone. What happened? Marina sat down, feeling defeated. My best friend is talking to my ex behind my back. She's defending him, saying I should give him a second chance. And the office is about to fire me for abandonment of duty. Gabriel quickly ended the call and turned his full attention to Marina. Breathe. We'll fix this. How? Marina gave a humorless laugh. How are we going to fix it? I knew this week was too good to be true. I knew I'd pay the price when I came back. Marina, look at me. Gabriel held her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. You didn't do anything wrong. You took a week for yourself, for your mental health to find yourself. That's not a crime. And if the people in your life can't understand that, then maybe they don't deserve to be in your life. But my job. You are a brilliant lawyer. If this firm fires you, others will hire you in seconds. But Gabriel hesitated for a moment before continuing. Or you can do something completely different. You don't have to go back to that life if you don't want to. Marina shook her head. It's not that simple, Gabriel. You have enough money to choose to do whatever you want. I don't have that luxury. I need to work. I need to pay bills. I'll help you, Gabriel interrupted. Marina immediately pulled away, feeling a wave of defensiveness. No, I don't want your money. I don't want to be supported. I want to achieve things on my own. That's not what I meant. Gabriel backed off, realizing he had touched a sensitive point. I'm sorry, I just meant that you have options. You're not trapped. Marina rubbed her face, exhausted. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to react like that. It's just that—" She took a deep breath. "Robert always tried to control me financially. First by convincing me to spend money with him, then by stealing my savings. I swore I would never again be in a position where I depended financially on a man. I understand, and I respect that." Gabriel sat beside her again, but maintained a respectful distance. "So let's think about practical solutions. You go back to London, face the office. If they fire you, you look for another job. You have an exceptional resume, you won't have trouble finding something new. And as for your friend, you talk to her, tell her how you feel, and you resolve it. It sounds so simple when you say it like that, because it's simpler than it seems. What complicates it is fear, anxiety, the emotional weight we put on things. But at the end of the day, they are just practical decisions that need to be made." One step at a time, Marina nodded, to absorb his wisdom. "And what about us? We remain." Gabriel held her hand. "No matter what happens out there, we remain. I won't give up on what we have just because it's going to get difficult. And I hope you won't either." Marina squeezed his hand back. "I won't, I promise." They spent the rest of the morning making calls, solving what they could remotely, preparing for the inevitable return. Gabriel spoke with his vice president, established that he would return tomorrow night and that an emergency meeting would be called. Marina called the office, spoke with the senior partner, explained that she had had a personal emergency and would return to clarify everything in person. She didn't call Julia. She wasn't ready for that conversation yet. In the afternoon, the clouds dissipated and the sun shone again. Gabriel suggested they go to the beach, enjoy the last moments of peace before the storm they knew was coming. They walked along the sand in silence for a while, just absorbing the environment, engraving every detail in memory. The sound of the waves, the warmth of the sun on their skin, the smell of salt in the air, the feel of the sand between their toes. "I'll miss this," Marina said softly. "This peace, this simplicity." "Then let's come back," Gabriel replied. "Not now, but in the future. Let's make it a ritual. Every year, a week just for us, away from everything, to remind ourselves of what's important." Marina smiled, clinging to that promise like a lifeline. "I'd like that." They sat on the sand and watched the sea. Marina rested her head on Gabriel's shoulder, and he put his arm around her, pulling her closer. "Gabriel," Marina said after a long silence, "I'm scared." "Of what?" "That when we return to London, all this will disappear, as if it were just a dream, as if it couldn't exist in the real world. That won't happen." Gabriel kissed the top of her head. "What we have is real, and it will continue to be real no matter where we are." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've never felt this way before." Gabriel turned her body so they could look each other in the eyes. "I've never had a connection like this with anyone. I've never felt I could be completely myself with another person. You see me, Marina. You truly see me. Not the businessman, not the billionaire, not the last name, just me. And that's something I won't let slip away without a fight." Marina felt tears well up in her eyes, but they were good tears. "I see you too. And I love you exactly for who you are." It was the first time she had said those 3 words. They came out naturally, without fear, without hesitation. Gabriel smiled, a huge, genuine smile that lit up his entire face. "I love you too. I've loved you since that first call. I just didn't know how to name what I felt." Marina felt tears return, but now they were tears of pure happiness. "So what do we do?" "We," Gabriel squeezed her hand, "we continue. We live these last 2 days intensely. And when we return to London, we find out if what we have here is real or just a holiday fantasy. What if it's just a fantasy? Then at least we will have lived something beautiful, even if it's temporary. And what if it's real?" Gabriel looked her in the eyes. "If it's real, then we fight for it, with everything we have." Marina nodded, her heart filled with an emotion she hadn't felt in so long that she had almost forgotten what it was like. Hope. Real hope, not the illusion Robert sold. Hope built on truth, vulnerability, genuine connection. They sat on the beach late, talking about the possible future they could build together. They didn't make grand promises or detailed plans. They just shared dreams, possibilities, hopes. When they finally returned to the guest house, Gabriel walked Marina to the door of her room. They stood there close, their eyes fixed on each other. "Good night, Marina," Gabriel whispered. "Good night." "Gabriel." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to back away if she wanted to, but Marina didn't back away. Instead, she closed her eyes and let him kiss her. It was a soft, gentle kiss, laden with promise. There was no rush, no desperation, just pure connection, two souls recognizing each other. When they separated, both were smiling. Marina entered her room, closed the door, and leaned against it, her heart pounding in her chest. She touched her own lips, still feeling the warmth of the kiss. For the first time in a long time, Marina wasn't afraid of the future. Because for the first time in a long time, there was something worth fighting for. The sixth day dawned cloudy. It was the first time since they arrived in St. Lucia that the sky wasn't completely blue. Grey clouds covered the horizon, and the wind blew stronger, bringing a different smell from the sea as if a storm was approaching. Marina woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. Anxiety. Reality was beginning to infiltrate the perfect bubble they had built. Tomorrow would be the last day. The day after tomorrow they would be back in London, back to their real lives, back to all the responsibilities and problems they had left behind. She picked up the red notebook and wrote her morning reflections. The words came with more difficulty today, heavy with weight and worry. What would happen when they returned? Was Gabriel truly willing to fight for what they had, or was all this just a tropical fantasy that would evaporate as soon as they stepped back on London soil? And her? Was she ready to face the consequences of having disappeared for a week without properly notifying anyone? The office would certainly be furious. Clients waiting for her, cases piled up, the reputation that took years to build possibly damaged. But at the same time, Marina didn't regret it. Not one bit. That week had been necessary. Vital. She had rediscovered herself, had discovered parts of herself that she thought had died during her relationship with Robert. When she left the room, she found Gabriel on the veranda, but he didn't have the tranquil expression of previous days. He looked worried, tense, staring at his phone screen with a furrowed brow. "Is everything okay?" Marina asked, sitting beside him. Gabriel sighed deeply before answering. "I turned on my phone this morning. I needed to check a few things before we went back." He showed her the screen. "I have 143 missed calls and over 300 unread emails." Marina felt the weight of reality fall on her shoulders. "Wow. My VP is desperate. The company is in crisis with an acquisition that was underway before I disappeared. My mother called 17 times, worried something had happened to me. And my fiancé," he paused bitterly. "My ex-fiancé, since I technically cancelled the wedding by disappearing, is threatening to sue for breach of contract." "Contract?" Marina raised an eyebrow. The marriage was essentially a business contract, a merger of families and businesses. Gabriel dropped his phone on the table with more force than he intended, and I threw everything to the wind without any prior notice. Marina held his hand. "Do you regret it?" Gabriel looked at her, and the sincerity in his eyes reassured her. "Not for a second. But I can't deny that reality hits harder when you see the concrete consequences of your choices." Marina nodded, understanding perfectly. "I think I need to turn on my phone too. Face reality." She went to the room, picked up the device that had been off since they arrived, and pressed the power button. The phone took a few seconds to boot up, and then began to vibrate uncontrollably, with notifications arriving all at once. 32 missed calls, 87 unread messages. Most were from office numbers. But there were several from Julia too. Marina opened her friend's messages first. The first message was from 5 days ago, right after Marina had sent the notification that she was traveling. "Marina, are you okay? Where did you go? Why so suddenly?" Subsequent messages escalated, in concern. "Please answer. I'm getting worried. You never do this, just disappear like that without details." And then 2 messages from the day before that made Marina's blood run cold. "Marina, Robert showed up here asking about you. He said you're not answering his calls and that he's worried. I told him you traveled but didn't tell me where. He was very upset. The second message was even worse. Marina, I need to tell you something. Robert and I talked a lot yesterday. He really seems different, truly in therapy, working on himself. I think you should give him a chance to explain. I know you'll be mad at me for saying this, but sometimes people deserve second chances. Marina felt nausea rising in her throat. Julia, her best friend, the person she trusted most in the world, was talking to Robert behind her back. Worse, she was defending him, suggesting Marina should give a second chance to the man who betrayed and stole from her. How could she do this to me? Marina whispered to herself, tears stinging her eyes. She continued scrolling through the messages. There were several from the office, from the senior partner, saying her absence was causing problems, that important clients were dissatisfied, that she needed to return immediately or there would be serious consequences. Marina closed her eyes, trying to control her breathing. 7 days. Just 7 days of a break from real life, and everything was falling apart. She returned to the veranda where Gabriel was still sitting, now making calls, his voice firm and professional as he managed crises remotely. When he saw Marina, he immediately realized something was wrong. "Hold on a moment," he said to the person on the other end of the line, and then covered the phone's microphone. What happened? Marina sat down, feeling defeated. "My best friend is talking to my ex behind my back. She's defending him, saying I should give him a second chance. And the office is about to fire me for abandonment of duty." Gabriel quickly ended the call and turned his full attention to Marina. "Breathe. We'll fix this." "How?" Marina gave a humorless laugh. "How are we going to fix it? I knew this week was too good to be true. I knew I'd pay the price when I came back." "Marina, look at me." Gabriel held her face in, held her, his hands forcing her to look at him. "You didn't do anything wrong. You took a week for yourself, for your mental health, to find yourself. That's not a crime. And if the people in your life can't understand that, then maybe they don't deserve to be in your life. But my job. You are a brilliant lawyer. If this firm fires you, others will hire you in seconds. But," Gabriel hesitated for a moment before continuing, "or you can do something completely different. You don't have to go back to that life if you don't want to." Marina shook her head. "It's not that simple, Gabriel. You have enough money to choose to do whatever you want. I don't have that luxury. I need to work. I need to pay bills. I need to—" "I'll help you," Gabriel interrupted. Marina immediately pulled away, feeling a wave of defensiveness. "No, I don't want your money. I don't want to be supported. I want to achieve things on my own." "That's not what I meant." Gabriel backed off, realizing he had touched a sensitive point. "I'm sorry. I just meant that you have options. You're not trapped." Marina rubbed her face, exhausted. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to react like that. It's just that—" She took a deep breath. "Robert always tried to control me financially. First by convincing me to spend money with him, then by stealing my savings. I swore I would never again be in a position where I depended financially on a man. I understand, and I respect that." Gabriel sat beside her again, but maintained a respectful distance. "So let's think about practical solutions. You go back to London, face the office. If they fire you, you look for another job. You have an exceptional resume. You won't have trouble finding something new. And as for your friend, you talk to her, tell her how you feel, and you resolve it. It sounds so simple when you say it like that, because it's simpler than it seems. What complicates it is fear, anxiety, the emotional weight we put on things, but at the end of the day they are just practical decisions that need to be made, one step at a time." Marina nodded, trying to absorb his wisdom. "And what about us? We remain." Gabriel held her hand. "No matter what happens out there, we remain. I won't give up on what we have just because it's going to get difficult, and I hope you won't either." Marina squeezed his hand back. "I won't, I promise." They spent the rest of the morning making calls, solving what they could remotely, preparing for the inevitable return. Gabriel spoke with his vice president, established that he would return tomorrow night and that an emergency meeting would be called. Marina called the office, spoke with the senior partner, explained that she had had a personal emergency and would return to clarify everything in person. She didn't call Julia. She wasn't ready for that conversation yet. In the afternoon, the clouds dissipated and the sun shone again. Gabriel suggested they go to the beach, enjoy the last moments of peace before the storm they knew was coming. They walked along the sand in silence for a while, just absorbing the environment, engraving each detail in memory. The sound of the waves, the warmth of the sun on their skin, the smell of salt in the air, the feel of the sand between their toes. "I'll miss this," Marina said softly, "this peace, this simplicity. Then let's come back." Gabriel replied, "Not now, but in the future. Let's make it a ritual. Every year, a week just for us, away from everything, to remind ourselves of what's important." Marina smiled, clinging to that promise like a lifeline. "I'd like that." They sat on the sand and watched the sea. Marina rested her head on Gabriel's shoulder, and he put his arm around her, pulling her closer. "Gabriel," Marina said after a long silence, "I'm scared." "Of what?" "That when we return to London, all this will disappear. As if it were just a dream, as if it couldn't exist in the real world. That won't happen." Gabriel kissed the top of her head. "What we have is real, and it will continue to be real no matter where we are." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've never felt this way before." Gabriel turned her body so that they could look each other in the eyes. "I've never had a connection like this with anyone. I've never felt I could be completely myself with another person. You see me, Marina. You truly see me. Not the businessman, not the billionaire, not the last name, just me, and that's something. And I won't let slip away without a fight." Marina felt tears well up in her eyes, but they were good tears. "I see you too, and I love you exactly for who you are." It was the first time she had said those 3 words. They came out naturally, without fear, without hesitation. Gabriel smiled, a huge, genuine smile that lit up his entire face. "I love you too. I've loved you since that first call. I just didn't know how to name what I felt." Marina felt tears return, but now they were tears of pure happiness. "So what do? Gabriel squeezed her hand. "We continue. We live these last 2 days intensely. And when we return to London, we find out if what we have here is real or just a holiday fantasy. What if it's just a fantasy? Then at least we will have lived something beautiful, even if it's temporary. And what if it's real?" Gabriel looked her in the eyes. "If it's real, then we fight for it, with everything we have." Marina nodded, her heart filled with an emotion she hadn't felt in so long that she had almost forgotten what it was like. Hope. Real hope, not the illusion Robert sold. Hope built on truth, vulnerability, genuine connection. They sat on the beach late, talking about the possible future they could build together. They didn't make grand promises or detailed plans. They just shared dreams, possibilities, hopes. When they finally returned to the guest house, Gabriel walked Marina to the door of her room. They stood there, close, their eyes fixed on each other. "Good night, Marina," Gabriel whispered. "Good night, Gabriel." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to back away if she wanted to, but Marina didn't back away. Instead, she closed her eyes and let him kiss her. It was a soft, gentle kiss, laden with promise. There was no rush, no desperation, just pure connection, 2 souls recognizing each other. When they separated, both were smiling. Marina entered her room, closed the door and leaned against it, her heart pounding in her chest. She touched her own lips, still feeling the warmth of the kiss. For the first time in a long time, Marina wasn't afraid of the future, because for the first time in a long time there was something worth fighting for. The 7th and last day arrived too quickly. Marina woke up early, her heart heavy. She didn't want to leave. She wanted to freeze that moment, live forever on that island where everything seemed possible. But she knew she couldn't. Real life was waiting, with all its problems and challenges. She packed her bag slowly, placing each item carefully, as if by doing it slowly she could prolong the time. When she finished, She stood in the middle of the room for a few minutes, just looking around, memorizing every detail. There was a knock on the door. It was Gabriel. "Ready?" he asked, his voice also tinged with melancholy. "No," Marina admitted, "but we're going anyway." They checked out of the guest house. The owner hugged them tightly, as if they were family, and wished them all the best. "You are a special couple," she said with a warm smile. "I know you'll overcome any challenge life throws your way." Marina hoped she was right. The flight back was silent, both lost in thought, processing everything they had experienced, mentally preparing for what was to come. Gabriel held Marina's hand throughout the flight, a constant reminder that they were not alone. When the plane landed in London, reality hit hard. The noise, the pollution, the frantic pace. It was as if they had emerged from a peaceful dream and woken up in a chaotic nightmare. "Marina," Gabriel said while they were still on the jet before disembarking, "no matter what happens in the next few days, remember that I'm here. You don't have to face anything alone." Marina nodded, squeezing his hand. "I know. Thank you." They separated at the airport. Gabriel had a car waiting to take him directly to the company headquarters, where an emergency meeting was already scheduled. Marina took a taxi to her apartment. When she entered the empty apartment, she felt a wave of loneliness. Everything was exactly as she had left it. The table with scattered papers, the closed laptop, the routine frozen in time. But she was different. She had changed in ways she was only beginning to understand. Marina took a long shower, changed into professional clothes, and prepared to go to the office. She knew the conversation wouldn't be easy. She knew she would probably be fired. But she also knew she was ready to face the consequences of her choices. Before leaving, her phone rang. It was Julia. Marina hesitated for a moment, but then answered. "Marina! Finally!" Julia's voice sounded relieved. "I was so worried. Where were you? Why didn't you answer my messages?" "I need you to come here," Marina said, her voice controlled but firm. "Now. We need to talk." There was a pause on the other end. "Okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Marina hung up and stared at her phone. The conversation with Julia would be even harder than the one at the office. Because losing a job was one thing, losing a 10-year friendship was another, entirely. But it had to be done. She could no longer live surrounded by people who didn't respect her, who made decisions about her life behind her back, who defended those who hurt her. It was time to set boundaries. It was time to fight for herself. When Julia arrived, Marina was sitting on the sofa, her hands clasped in her lap. Her friend entered with a nervous smile, clearly sensing something was wrong. "Marina, what happened?" Julia sat in the armchair opposite her. "You're scaring me. I read your messages." Marina went straight to the point. "About you talking to Robert. About you thinking I should give him a second chance." Julia's face turned red. "Oh, that? How could you, Julia?" Marina felt her voice begin to falter, but forced herself to remain firm. "How could you talk to the man who destroyed me, behind my back, and then defend him?" "Marina, it wasn't like that." Julia tried to explain. "He showed up here worried about you. We talked, and he really seems different. He's in therapy, working on himself." "And you believed him?" Marina felt anger bubbling up. "You who saw me shattered for months because of him, who comforted me when I discovered the betrayal, who helped me when he stole my money, you believed him?" "I just think maybe he deserves a chance to explain," Julia insisted. "People change, Marina." "People change," Marina agreed. "But Robert is not one of those people. He's a manipulator, Julia, and you fell right into his trap. You're being unfair." Julia crossed her arms defensively. "Unfair?" Marina felt something break inside her. "Unfair would be for me to disappear for a week and you side with an abusive ex instead of trusting my judgment. Unfair would be for you to invade my privacy, give information about me to someone I cut out of my life. Unfair would be for you to question my decisions and suggest I go back to someone who hurt me so much. Marina, I just want what's best for you. Then you have a very strange way of showing it." Marina stood up, indicating the conversation was ending. I think we need some time, Julia. Real time, away from each other. Are you ending our friendship? Julia looked shocked. Because of this? It's not because of this, Marina corrected. It's because you crossed a line you shouldn't have. It's because you didn't respect me, and I can't have people in my life who don't respect me. Julia stood still for a moment, processing. Then she slowly stood up, picked up her bag, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time. I hope you don't regret this, Marina. I hope so too, Marina replied calmly. When the door closed, Marina collapsed onto the sofa, her body shaking with silent sobs. She had just ended a 10-year friendship, a friendship she thought was unshakable, but at the same time a part of her felt relieved, as if she had finally removed a weight she didn't even know she was carrying. Marina picked up her phone and sent a message to Gabriel. I talked to Julia. I ended the friendship. It hurt, but it was necessary. The reply came almost immediately. I'm proud of you. You're being strong. Do you want me to come over? Marina thought for a moment, but replied, No. I need to do this alone. But thank you for being there. Always. Marina put her phone away, wiped her tears, reapplied her makeup, and then left the apartment heading to the office. It was time to face the next challenge, and this time she wasn't running, she was fighting. Marina entered the law firm with her head held high. The environment was familiar, every corridor, every door, every room she knew by heart. But now it seemed different, or perhaps she was different. Colleagues looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and judgment as she walked towards the senior partner's office. Marina could hear the whispers. Imagine the gossip that must have circulated during her week-long absence. Dr. Mendelssohn's secretary, the founding partner of the firm, greeted her with a tense look. He's waiting for you. Go in. Marina took a deep breath and opened the door. Dr. Mendelssohn was sitting behind his enormous mahogany desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, a severe expression on his face. Beside him was Dr. Costello, the other senior partner. Both were over 60, respected figures in the London legal world, and clearly not happy. Miss Olsen, Dr. Mendelssohn began, his voice cold and formal. Please, sit down. Marina sat in the chair in front of the desk, maintaining an upright posture, her hands calm in her lap. She wouldn't show nervousness or regret. Do you have any idea of the situation you caused with your unauthorized absence? He continued. We have extremely dissatisfied important clients. Deadlines were missed. Your reputation, and consequently the reputation of this firm, has been tarnished. I understand, Marina replied calmly, and I apologize for the inconvenience caused. I had a personal emergency that I needed to resolve. An emergency that didn't allow for even a phone call? Or an email? Dr. Costello interjected, his tone accusatory. Marina, you simply disappeared. This is unacceptable for a professional of your caliber. You are right, Marina admitted. I should have communicated better. But at the same time she paused, choosing her words carefully. I have spent the last 5 years dedicating myself entirely to this firm. I worked weekends, holidays, late nights. I sacrificed my health, my relationships, my personal life. And for the first time I took a week for myself. A single week to take care of my mental health. And that is considered unforgivable. We are not questioning your right to take a vacation, Miss Olsen. Dr. Mendelssohn adjusted his glasses. We are questioning the way you did it, without notice, without organizing the transition of your cases without responsibility. You are right, Marina nodded, and I accept the consequences of my actions. If the decision is for my dismissal, I understand. The two partners exchanged glances. Dismissal is a strong word, Dr. Costello said, but disciplinary actions will be necessary. Suspension without pay for 1 month, and you will be barred from working with the most important clients for a probationary period of 6 months. Marina was about to respond when the office door burst open. One of the junior lawyers entered, visibly agitated. Sorry to interrupt, but there's an urgent situation. He looked directly at Marina. Dr. Olsen, the police are here. They want to speak with you. Marina's blood ran cold. Police? About what? Dr. Mendelsohn stood up, alarmed. I don't know the details, but they mentioned something about an investigation into fund embezzlement. Marina felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Fund embezzlement? She had never embezzled anything in her life. There must be a mistake, she said, her voice weaker than she intended. Let's resolve this now. Dr. Mendelsohn accompanied her to the reception where two detectives were waiting. Dr. Marina Olson? One of them asked, showing a badge. Yes, that's me. We need you to accompany us to give a statement regarding financial irregularities involving a client's account at the firm. The detective maintained a professional but firm tone. What irregularities? What client? Marina was completely lost. Dr. Arthur Foster, the other detective replied. There have been suspicious transfers of significant amounts from the client's account to personal accounts, and your electronic signature appears on the documents authorizing these transactions. That's impossible. Marina felt panic beginning to take over. I never authorized any irregular transfers. Someone must have forged my signature. That's exactly what we're going to investigate. But we need your statement. Now. Marina looked at Dr. Mendelsohn, who seemed as shocked as she was. Go, he said. Cooperate fully with the investigation. We will contact our criminal lawyers to represent you. The following hours were a blur. Marina was taken to the police station, where she spent hours answering questions, trying to explain that she had never authorized those transfers, that her electronic signature must have been hacked or forged. The detectives were professional but skeptical. The evidence apparently was substantial. When she was finally released, it was already night. Marina left the police station exhausted, confused, terrified. How had this happened? Who had done this to her? Her phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. Surprise, Marina? Did you really think you could ignore me and get away with it? Now you'll feel what it's like to lose everything. Marina felt nauseous. Robert. It had to be Robert. With trembling hands, she called Gabriel. He answered on the first ring. Marina, what happened? I'm seeing news about an investigation at your firm. Robert set me up. Marina felt tears begin to fall. He forged documents, made it look like I embezzled money from a client. Gabriel, I could go to prison for this. Where are you? I just left the police station. Stay there. I'm coming to pick you up. Gabriel arrived in 15 minutes, personally driving a black sports car. Marina got into the vehicle and immediately broke down, crying uncontrollably. He hugged her, holding her tightly, murmuring words of comfort. We'll fix this, he promised. I've already called the best criminal lawyers in London. We'll prove your innocence. But what if we can't? Marina sobbed. What if the evidence is too strong? What if I really am convicted? We won't let that happen. Gabriel gently pushed the hair from her face. Marina, do you hear me? We won't let Robert destroy you. He's done enough harm. This ends now. How? He's gone. He must be hiding somewhere, far from any responsibility. Then we'll find him. Gabriel had a determination in his eyes that Marina had never seen before. I have resources, private detectives, connections. We'll track him down and make him face the consequences of his actions. Marina wanted to believe. She wanted to have hope, but everything seemed so bleak at that moment. Gabriel took her to his penthouse. She wasn't ready to be alone. He made tea, put a blanket over her shoulders, and stayed by her side as she tried to process everything that had happened in a single day. The next day, the news spread. Promising lawyer investigated for fund embezzlement. Financial scandal rocks traditional law firm. Marina Olson. From rising star to fraud suspect. Marina was formally dismissed from the firm. Her bar association was notified. Her reputation, carefully built over years, was destroyed in a matter of days. But Gabriel kept his promise. He hired an entire team of lawyers specializing in criminal defense and digital law. He hired private detectives to track Robert, and slowly, piece by piece, they began to put together the true story. Robert had worked in the technology department of a law firm years ago. He had enough knowledge to hack systems, forge electronic signatures, plant evidence. He had access to Marina's firm's systems because she, naively, had given him her password when they were still together, so he could send some documents for her when she was traveling. He had kept that information, and when Marina rejected him again, he decided to use it to destroy her. It took 3 weeks, but they finally managed to track him down. Robert was hiding in a rural town outside of Birmingham, using a false name. When confronted with the evidence gathered by Gabriel's team, he tried to flee again, but this time the police were waiting. Robert was arrested, and with his arrest the whole setup collapsed. Experts proved that Marina's electronic signature had been forged. Digital traces were found connecting Robert to the fraudulent transfers. He had used the stolen money to pay gambling debts. Marina was completely exonerated. The relief was immense, but the mark had already been made. Even exonerated, her reputation was tarnished. Law firms hesitated to hire her. Clients avoided her. The scandal had been very public, very publicized, and even though the truth had come out, many still had doubts. Marina fell into a deep depression. She spent weeks in her apartment, unable to get out of bed, questioning all the choices she had made in life. Gabriel was always there, supportive, but respecting when she needed space. It was during this dark period that Marina returned to the red notebook. The pages written in St. Lucia were still there, preserving those magical days that seemed to have happened in another life. Marina started writing again, not about the current pain, but about the journey, about the woman she was before, about the abusive relationship, about the decision to call the wrong number that changed everything, about the 7 days on the island, about rediscovering herself. The words flowed naturally, honestly, unfiltered. It was cathartic, to transform all that pain, all that confusion, into something concrete, into a narrative with a beginning, middle, and end. When she finished, she had written almost 100 pages. It was a long, intense, raw story. Marina read and reread, polishing, adjusting, and then, on impulse, she decided to submit it to a literary competition she had seen advertised online. National Short Story Contest. New Beginnings. She submitted it anonymously, using a pseudonym. She expected nothing. It was just a way to get that story out, to free herself from it. Meanwhile, Gabriel was also making changes in his life. True to his words in St. Lucia, he had temporarily stepped down from the company presidency, leaving the vice president in charge. And he had enrolled in an art history course at the University of London. He was rediscovering the passion his mother had sacrificed. He visited museums, galleries, studios. He bought canvases and paints and spent hours trying to paint, discovering he had some inherited talent. It wasn't about being professional. It was about reconnecting with a part of himself that had been buried for years under the weight of family expectations. Marina and Gabriel supported each other in this phase of reconstruction. It wasn't always easy. There were bad days, arguments, moments of frustration, but they remained together, faithful to the promise made on the island. 2 months after submitting her story to the contest, Marina received an email. She had won first place. The prize included the publication of the story in a national anthology and a considerable sum of money. Marina could hardly believe it. Her story, those pages written with tears and hope, had touched the judges. It had been considered the best story among over 1,000 entries. When the anthology was published, something unexpected happened. The story went viral on social media. Readers shared excerpts, discussed the themes addressed, identified with the protagonist's journey. In a few weeks, Marina was being invited for interviews, lectures, literary events. She discovered a new vocation: to talk about her experience, about abusive relationships, about the importance of setting boundaries, about starting over after destruction. Her voice, once silenced by years of conditioning, now resonated strong and clear. It was at one of these lectures, at a university in London, that something Marina didn't expect happened. In the middle of the audience, she saw a familiar face, a man in his 60s, grey hair, upright posture, her father. Retired Judge Henry Olson had not spoken to his daughter since the scandal. He had been publicly ashamed, told friends and acquaintances that he didn't understand how his daughter could have been involved in something so sordid. Even after her exoneration, He kept his distance, unable to deal with the fact that his perfect daughter had shown herself to be human, fallible. But there he was, sitting in the back row, listening to Marina talk about courage, about authenticity, about choosing her own happiness above others' expectations. After the lecture, Marina stepped down from the stage and walked directly to him. "Father." Henry stood up, visibly uncomfortable. "Marina, you—" His voice faltered. "I heard everything you said. Thank you for coming." There was a long, awkward silence. "I was wrong about you," Henry finally said, the words clearly costing him a lot. "I spent my whole life projecting my unfulfilled dreams onto you without ever asking what you truly wanted. And when you needed me most, I abandoned you. For that," he took a deep breath, "I apologize." Marina felt tears fill her eyes. These were words she had waited her entire life to hear. "I forgive you, Father," she said softly, "but I need you to understand that now I am the one guiding my life. No longer you, no longer anyone else, just me." Henry nodded, for the first time looking at his daughter, not as an extension of himself, but as an independent person. "I understand, and I am proud of the woman you have become, even if it's not who I planned." This was perhaps the greatest compliment he could give. As Marina's life reorganized through literature and lectures, Gabriel had an idea. Without telling Marina, he created a completely new executive position in a newly opened subsidiary of the Ashton Group. Director of Corporate Ethics and Compliance. It was a role that required legal knowledge but also communication skills, leadership, and the ability to influence organizational culture. He advertised the position normally, through all traditional recruitment channels. Hundreds of candidates applied, and among them, after much thought and encouragement from Gabriel, disguised as casual suggestion, Marina also applied. The selection process was rigorous: multiple interviews, practical tests, presentations. Marina competed with extremely qualified candidates, but her background, her experience, and especially her ability to speak about ethics, about doing the right thing even when it's difficult, about rebuilding after destruction, made her stand out. She was hired. Only after signing the contract did Marina discover that Gabriel had been the one to conceive the position. She was initially furious, feeling she had been manipulated, but Gabriel explained that she had gone through the entire selection process without any favoritism, that the hiring committee didn't even know about their relationship, that she had won on her own merit. "The position was created with you in mind," he admitted, "but you earned it on your own." Marina eventually accepted this, and she discovered that she loved the new job. It wasn't litigation. It wasn't what she had done for years. It was about building something positive, about preventing problems, instead of just solving them after they happened, about shaping a company's culture for the better. For the first time, she was working on something that had real purpose. And that made all the difference. Months passed. Marina and Gabriel built a life together. They weren't living together yet, maintaining an independence they both valued, but they spent most of their time together, supporting each other, growing together. Robert was tried and convicted. In addition to fraud and document forgery, other crimes he had committed over the years were discovered. He was serving his sentence, finally facing real consequences for his actions. Julia tried to reconnect, a few times, sending messages asking for forgiveness. Marina eventually responded saying she forgave, but that the friendship could not be restored. Some bridges once burned could not be rebuilt, and she was at peace with that. A year after the trip to St. Lucia, Gabriel invited Marina to dinner. He said he had something special planned. Marina suspected what it might be, but said nothing. He took her to an unexpected place. Not a fancy restaurant, not his luxurious penthouse. He took her to his mother's studio, a space that had recently been transformed. The walls were covered with Gabriel's mother's old paintings, restored and framed, and also with new paintings, some made by his mother herself, who had returned to painting after decades, and some made by Gabriel. "It's beautiful," Marina whispered, walking among the artworks. "My mother wanted to be here today," Gabriel explained, but I asked for a moment alone with you first." He guided Marina to the center of the studio, where there was a single painting covered by a white cloth. "I want to show you something I made." Gabriel removed the cloth, revealing a large painting. It was St. Lucia, the beach where they had stayed, painted with vibrant colors, full of life and emotion. It wasn't technically perfect, but it was honest, authentic. In the lower right corner, almost imperceptibly, were two small figures sitting on the sand, looking at the horizon. "It's where it all began," Gabriel said softly. "Where I found not only you, but also myself." Marina was speechless, emotional. Marina Olsen, Gabriel knelt right there, in the middle of the studio, and took a small box from his pocket. "This is not a new ring, it's my grandmother's ring, the woman who also abandoned her dreams for her family, but who in her last years of life told me never to do the same. She wanted me to be happy, authentic, true. And you gave me that." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring with a blue sapphire. "Will you marry me?" Marina looked at him, at the ring, at the painting behind them, and then she said something that surprised him. "No." Gabriel blinked, confused. "No? Not yet." Marina knelt too, coming to his level, holding his hands. "Gabriel, I love you. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love someone, but I am still discovering myself, still building myself. I need to be sure that I am marrying you because I am whole, not because I need you to complete me. I need to know that I am a complete individual before I unite with another complete individual." Gabriel was silent for a moment, processing. Then he smiled. "How much time do you need?" "I don't know. A few months? A year? When I feel ready." Marina squeezed his hands. "Can you wait? I would wait a lifetime for you." 6 months later, on a quiet late afternoon, Marina and Gabriel were in a park by a lake in London. It was a simple public place where families had picnics and children played, nothing glamorous or spectacular. They had just finished a long walk, talking about everything and nothing, when Gabriel stopped in front of the lake, looking at the calm water reflecting the orange sky of the sunset. "Marina," he said, turning to her. "No prepared script, no ring, no kneeling. Just tell me, are you ready?" Marina knew exactly what he was talking about, and for the first time the answer came without hesitation, without doubt, without fear. "I'm ready." "Will you marry me?" "Yes, with one condition." "What?" "That we never lose our individuality, that we are two wholes, not two halves, that we support each other but do not suffocate each other, that we love but never lose ourselves in each other." Gabriel smiled that smile she loved so much. "I completely agree." "Then yes." Marina smiled too, tears of happiness streaming down her face. 1,000 times yes. They kissed right there, under the orange sky, surrounded by ordinary people living ordinary lives. There were no fireworks, no applause, no spotlights, just two human beings choosing, with full awareness and freedom, to build a life together. The wedding happened 3 months later. It was a small and intimate ceremony, with only close family and a few true friends. Gabriel's mother painted a special painting for the occasion, depicting two distinct paths that met but remained parallel, intertwined but preserving their individuality. Marina wore a simple, elegant dress that she chose herself. There was no veil, no imposed traditions, only what made sense to them. Their vows were written by themselves. Gabriel promised to always see Marina as she truly was, to support her dreams even when they were different from his, and never to try to mold her into something she wasn't. Marina promised to be vulnerable but strong, to love intensely but maintain her independence, and to fight for both of them when things got difficult. They weren't promises of perfection, they were promises of authenticity. When the ceremony ended and everyone was celebrating, Marina found herself looking around and reflecting on the journey. It had started with a wrong call, a mistake that could have been just a passing embarrassment, but which proved to be the most correct moment of her life. She had lost a job, a friendship, a reputation, but she had gained herself back. She had found her voice, her purpose, her true love. and she realized that nothing she lost really mattered, because what she gained was infinitely more valuable. That night, already on their honeymoon, which they chose to spend in the same place where it all began, St. Lucia, Marina opened the red notebook one last time and wrote the final sentence of her story. It wasn't chance. It was destiny in disguise. And we didn't just choose each other with words. We chose each other with courage. She closed the notebook and looked at Gabriel, who was sleeping peacefully beside her, his face relaxed, at peace. She smiled to herself, happy in a way she had never been before, full, whole, free. Life would still have challenges. There would still be difficult days, obstacles, conflicts, but now Marina knew who she was. She knew her worth, and she knew she had someone by her side who loved her for exactly who she was, not for who they expected her to be. And that, Marina discovered, was all she had ever needed. Dear listeners, we hope Marina and Gabriel's story has touched your heart. If you were moved by this journey of new beginnings, courage and true love, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what stood out most to you in this story. Was it Marina's strength in facing her past? Was it Gabriel's vulnerability? Was it their rediscovery of themselves through each other? Every day we bring intense stories like this, which reveal the deepest side of the human soul and remind us that it's never too late to start over, to choose your own happiness, to truly love. Thank you for staying with us until the end. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode with another story that will stir your emotions and make you believe that life always gives us new chances. See you soon.